Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Rabbi.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay, good to see all of you. We are finishing up chapter 20 in the book of Shmuel Beis. We have maybe a few verses left, and then we will start chapter 21. So we're holding here where the prophet is telling us about the positions that are held in David's court, in David's kingdom. And we talked a little about Yoav being, although he was demoted, it seems that he was taken on, well, not just demoted, he was actually fired, but it seems like they took him back. And that's verse 23 mentions that Yoav was the commander of the entire army of Israel. And we explained that that had to do with the fact that everyone acknowledged that Yoav was the warrior. He was the commander in chief. I mean, he destroyed the rebellion of Sheva ben Bichri, and together with all the other success missions that the Jewish people were involved in throughout David HaMelech's time. So the people backed Yoav, and David felt obligated to reinstate him. Now, then it mentions that Benayahu ben Yehoyada, what actually spells Benaya ben Yehoyada, it doesn't spell it Benayahu. We actually know that he was the leader of the Sanhedrin, but in addition to being the leader of the Sanhedrin, he was also over the archers and the slingers, and that's verse 23. So again, we're in chapter 20, verse 23. We mentioned about that Benaya ben Yehoyada was in charge of the archers and the slingers, which on a simple level, that means that he was the in charge of a certain division of the army. And we had that before in the same chapter in a little earlier on, where if you look at verse 7, Hakresi v'haplesi, the archers and the slingers. Some say it was like a special division. But the Gemara says that the Kresi and Plesi actually mean the Sanhedrin, because they give clear-cut decisions. Kresi and Plesi means clarity and cut, and which basically means they're very precise in their decisions. So that's the according to the Gemara, that it refers to the Sanhedrin. But the other commentaries explain that at least the commentaries on the verses explain that in addition to Benayo ben Yehoyada being in charge of the Sanhedrin, he also was in charge of a division of the army. Now, verse 24 talks about Adoram, who was over the taxes, and it is surprising that it didn't mention him earlier on when it talked about who was all of David's appointed officers in chapter 8. If you look back to chapter 8, we had all the list of appointed officers, and it mentioned Yoav over there, it mentioned Benayo ben Yehoyada, and interestingly enough, it did not mention this tax collector, Doiram. And the simple understanding is that, or at least the commentaries mention this, that Doiram, that maybe they didn't need, he didn't have taxes on the people until later. In other words, at that point, they didn't have someone in charge of the taxes. And Yehoshaphat, the son of Achilud was the mazkir, and that refers to the one who the secretary, which means at least the Metzudas David explains it refers to the Sefer HaZachronos, which we know from Purim is the book of remembrances, the book of the Chronicles, and that was this individual Yehoshaphat ben Achilud. And then it mentions in verse 25, Sheva the scribe, or Shva, I should say, Shva the cipher, Shva the scribe, and Tzadok, and Avyasar with a Kayan. And what this refers to is the Kayanim, meaning that both of them were in the position of high priesthood. One was the high priest, one is going to become the high priest. And then verse 26 is, and also Ira Hayoiri. Ira the Yairite, which is, of course, the topic of discussion. What does that mean, Hayoiri? The Yairi, there is no city called Yair that we know of. What does it mean, Yairi? And was he it says, Haya Kohen LaDavid, he was a Kohen for David. So what does it mean he was a Kohen for David? So the Targum, one of the commentaries mentions that he was from a city called Tekoa, and it's called Yairi also because Tekoa was a place where they made oil. Tekoa was they made the oil for the menorah that we read about this week in the Torah portion. The menorah's oil came from a place called Tekoa, and that place would also be called, you could use the term Yairi, it gave light. So because it had so much oil, it was the place that was like, they specialized, they had a special oil olive groves. And so Yair HaYairi came from there. Now it does mention that he was the Kohen for David. So the Gemara asks, what does that mean? He was a Kohen for David and not anyone else. And the understanding is that David HaMelech used to give all of his tithes to this one Kohen. And the Gemara says that if we look at the next chapter, what comes right after this, it says that there was a famine. The Gemara connects the two things. It says, look at that. He gave all of his tithings to one Kohen, and then there's a famine, implying like a person shouldn't do that. A person shouldn't give all their tithings to one Kohen. You should spread it out. So the Gemara talks a little negatively about this idea that this Yair HaYairi was the Kohen, and for David, meaning he was the only Kohen. And so the Gemara looks at it in a negative light, that he should not have done that. He should have supported many Kohanim instead of giving it all to one.
Rabbi, I have a question for you.
Let me just conclude. So the end of the chapter ends off with all of these individuals, what their positions were, and then it says he was a Kohen unto David, and that's basically the end of chapter 20. Yes, Bruce.
What I'd like to know, how can you be a Kohen for David if you're not born a Kohen?
He was born a Kohen, but he didn't have to be the only one.
Okay.
There were 10,000 of them. David chose him to be the one to give his tithing. Yes,
right.
Ezra.
Thank you.
Who were the Kohanim that went to Absalom's side?
So that was the two sons, Tzadok's son and Avyasar's son, that they were the like emissaries. Their parents also went to Absalom's side, but the two sons, they went back and forth to share the information. So if you look back in chapter,
maybe that's the reason why he had this particular Kohen as as his yoetz, as his advisor.
Just 1 second. Achimatz and Yohainason. So those were the two names. Achimatz and Yohainason were the two names of the of those two the two sons. I'm sorry. What did you say? Maybe that's why what?
No, I thought that the two names that are listed over here were part of those that went to Avshalom's side.
Yeah, you're right. The parents. These are the two parents, the Kohen Gadol's, not the sons. Tzadok and Avyasar are the parents, and the sons was Achimatz and Yohainason.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is, even though it's listed here that Tzadok and Aviatar were the Kohanim, and one of them was Kohen Gadol, the reason why we have an extra name listed here is because he perhaps was still not completely trusting Tzadok and Aviatar.
Oh, I don't think so. They initially went with David, and David sent them back. They were like David's best people. They initially were with David, and David said that better you should go with but he didn't want the ark with him. So the king said to Tzadok in chapter 15, king said to Tzadok, return the ark of Hashem, and your son Achimatz and Yohainason they'll go with you. Word comes until word comes from you to inform me. So Tzadok and Avyasar returned the ark of Hashem to Yerushalayim. So they were with David all along. This was not. I don't think there was any thought that maybe that David had that they had chosen. On the contrary, they were the spies. They were spying out Avshalom's plans.
Okay.
Did I understand? Yeah. So that's chapter 15. Okay, so we're now in chapter 21.
Rabbi?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about the Yairi. There was something about Yair, and he had a bunch of sons on Yarim, and then they built something, I don't know, a city or a whole state. He had 60 sons or something on the Ayarim.
Yeah, you're remembering something from the book of Shreiftim, from the Shreiftim, and but this is not connected.
No,
different person.
It's just a similar name to the guy, the new Kohen that we're talking about, Yairi.
Yeah, I don't recall the Yairi, Ira HaYairi. But okay, we're chapter 21, verse 1, and we're now going to talk about the a famine that took place at the end of David HaMelech's life. And the commentaries do discuss that these events are not exactly in chronological order, and we'll see as we go along. So it says that there was, in the days of David, there was once a famine for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of Hashem, and Hashem said, it is for Shaul and for the house of blood, for his having killed the Givonites. There's a lot hidden into these verses, into this verse. What exactly is going on here? So basically, there was a famine for 3 years. And the first year, the Jewish people, they suffered from the famine. And the king, David HaMelech, when everyone gathered together on Pesach, the king said we should check and make sure that we don't have any idol worship. Everyone should make sure to get rid of idol worship, because maybe that's why the sin is affected. Maybe that's why we don't have rain. Why did he think it was connected to idol worship? Well, if you remember the Shema, what is the second paragraph of the Shema? If you don't listen to my commandments, and you're going to turn and worship other gods, I will. He will withhold the heavens. There won't be rain, and so on. So basically, from idol worship will be the cause of no rain. And so David HaMelech decided to made a big announcement over there, and also he sent messengers and policemen throughout all the areas of the Jewish communities to check out and see if there's any idol worship. And they checked and checked and checked. They didn't find any idol worship. So the next year, David HaMelech says, okay, let's see, maybe there's a sin of adultery. So he decides to check and see if, and he makes a big announcement, makes a big speech about how we have to figure out what's going on. Why is this affecting us? And sure enough, they look and try to find if there's any adultery, and they don't find any adultery. The Jewish people were pure, and it wasn't that. So then the king says maybe it has to do with withholding the tithings and not giving charity. Maybe there's bloodshed. So they looked into that, and that was the third year. And sure enough, they didn't find any of that either. There was no one was sinning. The Kohanim, the Levites, they all said, we got our tithings. Everyone's been giving their tithings properly. And so therefore, that wouldn't be the issue. So, and there's no murder. They checked and they said we haven't had any situations of murder. And it was a very, seems like to some extent, this was a righteous generation. And they couldn't figure it out. So David HaMelech said, maybe it's because of me. I sinned with Bathsheba. But I did as much tshuva as I could. I tried. I tried to get atonement. And what could it be? Maybe I did a different sin. So he told the Kohen Gadol, let's ask the Urim V'Tumim, which is the breastplate, or the name of Hashem that's written in that's placed, that's written on parchment and placed in a fold in the breastplate. And let's consult the Urim V'Tumim and let's see what Hashem says. So the reply from the Urim V'Tumim was that you didn't respect Shaul HaMelech when he died properly. He's buried on the eastern side of Eretz Yisrael, in other words, east past the Jordan River, and that's not where his family's grave is. Father's grave is in Eretz Yisrael proper, and he wasn't eulogized enough to for such a great person. He had removed all the idol worship from Eretz Yisrael, and when he died, it was considered some extent like a Kiddush Hashem that he died, and therefore he should have been mourned more honorably than how much he was mourned. So you didn't respect Shaul enough upon his death. And then the second thing is Shaul killed the Gevinim, which seems like a paradox. On the one hand, we're saying that Shaul was so righteous, he should have been honored more. And on the other hand, we said that Shaul killed the Gevinim, and nothing was done about this. Who are the Gevinim? So the Gevinim were people who came in the days of Yoshua. Yoshua was supposed to give everyone an ultimatum. Either you make peace with the Jewish people, you can live here, but you're going to have to pay us tax. You're going to have to, keep the 7 Noahide laws called the Ger Toshav, and which is it doesn't mean they're converted to Judaism, but they are proper Noahide. They keep the Noahide laws, and that was a commitment they would need to make if they want to stay in Eretz Yisrael. So they have to serve us, pay taxes, and keep those 7 Noahide laws. Again, we have 613 laws to keep the mitzvahs, but they have to keep a certain laws that are more for ethics and morality, and keep they do have to keep them because Hashem commanded us through Moshe Rabbeinu for the non-Jews to keep these laws. But they are, they're pretty much ethical laws. Having a court system, not killing, not stealing, not committing adultery, not worshiping idols, not cursing God, not eating meat from live animals. So there's a list of 7 Noahide laws, that 6 negative commandments, 1 positive, and those are the 7 Noahide that they would have to keep. There was a group of people that they came up with a plan, and their plan was that we don't want to have to keep all these commitments. So let's pretend that we're from a faraway country, and we'll get the Jewish people to make a promise that they'll be at peace with us. And if they do that, if we claim that we're from far away, they're not going to make us keep any. They're not going to make us keep any of these commitments because, they're from. They're from far away. So it's not like they want to live in Israel. They're from a faraway place. They're just passing through, and they want peace. Okay, sure, Jewish people will make peace with them, right? So they tricked Joshua. And what did Joshua do? He made peace with them. How did they trick us? Their bread was moldy. They walked around with shabby. Their clothing looked all torn. They said we're from far away and we haven't had food. Look at our food, our bread. It's all moldy already. We've been traveling for a long time. They made it sound like they're really from a faraway place. And it's like, what do we care if they, we didn't need to make them commit themselves to anything. We'll make peace. We're people of peace. So we made peace with them. In the end, they said, oh, you signed the paper. Once we signed it, all of a sudden they say, sorry, you live right next door. And too late. You signed the paper. You're ready. You promised us you're not going to kill us and you're going to be at peace with us. So, we tricked you. Now, Jewish people had to decide what to do. Should we tell them, listen, you people tricked us. We don't have to keep our promise because the promise was made with false information. And you're the ones who presented it falsely. It's not like we made a mistake. You tricked us. So we could take that path and say the promise is invalid. Or we could take the path of saying, you know what? We have to be worried that the nations are going to, this group of Gevinim, they're going to spread the word of, that we made a treaty with them. Everyone's going to know about this treaty. And if we transgress it, people are going to speak bad about the Jewish people and say, we don't keep our promises. So we had to make that decision. So Yeshua made this decision that better we should keep the promise than break it. And this way we'll make a Kiddush Hashem that we're not, even though we don't have to keep it, we'll keep it anyway, because it won't look bad on us. We don't want it to look bad on us. Okay, we won't kill them out. So that's what we did. We followed that. Then there was an interesting episode in the book of in the book of Yoshua. Some of you were with me when we learned it, that five kings, 5 nations tried to start a war with the Gevinim, this group of people. And so Joshua had to make a decision. We're not killing the group of Gevinim. They tricked us, but we're not going to kill them because we don't want it to look bad on us. Should we stick up for them when they have a war? To what extent are we going to back them? They're a bunch of liars. They had they tricked us, but we need to present ourselves well, and therefore we're gonna just try to stay at peace with them. But do we back them when there's a war? So Hashem sent a message that we should even back them, and we fought a war for them to that extent. Now, you have to keep in mind that they did convert, but their conversion was questionable. We weren't really sure what level of conversion did they, to what extent are they proper converts or not? It was a little strange. Yeshua was going to wait for the time of the Beis Hamikdash to make a decision on, if they're proper converts or not. Now, this story finalized what the situation with them would be. Here, this story that we're learning now gave us a little more clarity on what type of people they are. But basically, what happened was, we learned this when David was running away from Shaul, that where it was one of the places David went to. He was starving, and he went to Noiv Ir HaKoyanim, Noiv, the city of Koyanim. Now, David got himself some food over there, and he also got a knife. And when Shaul found out about this, because Doeg HaDaimi was there, most of you should remember this. This is we did learn this together. Doeg HaDaimi was on Shaul's side. David was running away, and David went there. He was famished, and he got some food, and he got a weapon. And Doeg went and told Shaul
the weapon from Goliath.
Well, initially, that's where right. But he got it from the Kohen Gadol. He got it from the Kohen Gadol. Now, the thing is that
but this was from Goliath. Yeah.
Correct, Ben. Yes. So Doeg went and told Shaul, guess what? The Kohanim helped out David. You're trying to kill David. Guess who helped him out? The Kohanim. They're on his team. They're on his side. So Shaul, in his Ruach Ra'ah, which was a sickness that Shaul had, that he thought that David was against him, and he had this evil spirit. So he went, and in his anger, he wanted to kill out the city of Noiv, and he asked some of his people to kill out the city of Noiv, and they refused. And then he got Doeg to kill out the city of Noiv, and Doeg went and killed out the city of Noiv. That means all the Kohanim died. They were all murdered. Only one of them was miraculously saved. Basically, it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. Very sad time for the Jewish people, especially because these poor Kohanim, they had nothing to do with this fight between David and Shaul. And anyway, so Shaul caused the whole city to be killed. Now, in that city, what ended up happening with the Gevinim? So we made a peace treaty with them. And what were they supposed to do? So Yeshua made them into water carriers and wood choppers. And basically, throughout the time of the Mishkan, that's what they ended up doing. They were, and for the Kohanim, they would chop the wood. They would bring water. And this was considered a proper, this was a way for them to live their life. They would get food, and they would chop wood and bring water. Now, when Shaul had the whole city of Noiv killed out, there's two parts to it. Number one, some of the Gevinim were killed. And number two, even those that weren't killed, they lost all of their sustenance because the whole city was basically destroyed. There was no more Mishkan for them to, the Mishkan was no longer there. And so they didn't have their job to chop wood and bring water. So they lost their sustenance. So because of this, some of them were killed. Some of them lost their sustenance. Because of this, they had a grudge against Shaul. And so the reason for the famine is, number one, Shaul wasn't eulogized and respected properly. And number two, we never got the peaceful, we never worked out a peaceful agreement with the Gevinim after what Shaul did to them. So that's basically where we're going to stop for today. Be continued tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. I'll hand the mic over to Rabbi Warner.